Captain America and his ragtag team of older, broken Avengers are on the run, but more importantly, they're on a collision course with the new state-backed Avengers. What'll happen next? We'll top to the pages of Avengers Twilight issue number 4 and find out what happens next together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue left off, Cap had just narrowly managed to survive his fight against Jimmy Stark, the vengeful son of Tony and the Wasp, thanks in no small part to the late intervention of Thor, God of Thunder. Jimmy knows he can't win the fight, and as such he ends up taking off. Steve actually has a pretty good one-liner here wherein he basically says, "Good, now the kid'll have to think about what he's done." Of course, our good guys' problems are far from over as the new S.H.I.E.L.D. regime scrambles the Air Force to come and bombard the raft back into the ocean, the idea being that they now need to cover their tracks and destroy any evidence of the horrible, inhumane human experiments they were conducting on the island, even if that means killing a bunch of scientists and security forces that were actively working for them. And hey, just to add to the whole twisted irony of the whole thing, we can see the pilot who's leading the bombing campaign, his helmet is actually covered in a bunch of superhero decals. Again, showing just how much the image of superheroes is ingrained in everyday culture in this dark future, but also how far people have fallen from actually honoring their heroic ideals. With the help of kaiju-sized Miss Marvel, Cap is actually able to save all the scientists and raft workers before they end up drowning. He even brings them back to the Defenders' secret underground base so that they can get patched up by his doctor wife, Rosa, who again, things are still pretty tense between these two. But as we can see, they're slowly but surely working through it. They've both agreed that they have taken oaths in their lives and that they're very important to each other. Steve even once again says he's sorry and reiterates how much he loves her. And in a very sweet little bit of turnaround, Rosa actually goes out of her way to defend Steve from some of the other Defenders who thinks it's absolutely insane that they took in a bunch of their enemies. Cap's ex-wife basically says that that's Steve to a T. He always sees the good in everyone. He doesn't think anyone's actively born evil, just that they occasionally stray from the path and that they can always see the light again. It's a beautiful, heartwarming part of his character, but it's also pretty damn infuriating to live with sometimes. Later on, now we see that the good guys have managed to rescue Tony Stark's head with the help of Thor's electricity. They're able to reanimate him so that he can give him the inside track to everything Jimmy and the regime is doing right now, starting with the fact that Kyle Jarvis, Jimmy's guardian all these years, isn't actually Jarvis's brother at all, but instead the Red Skull in disguise. Yes, that's right, one of the Avengers' oldest and most evil villains has been dripping poison into poor Jimmy's ear for over a decade now. It's no wonder why he's so absolutely messed up in the head. The hits just keep on coming too, as Old Man Iron Man tells the rest of the team that the Red Skull is getting ready to complete the final phase of his complete takeover of America. Apparently in a few days he's going to completely take over the US military and finally reveal himself to the world as actually being Red Skull. Kamala wonders why the hell he would do something like that. Considering that Kyle Jarvis and Jimmy Stark basically already run America, why would he need the recognition? Only for the new Hawkeye and former Bullseye to very astutely state that that's always the problem with dictators. They're at the end of the day complete and utter egomaniacs, and they always need their name underlined in the history textbooks, ones that they usually write themselves. This also very sadly means that the good guys are working against a ticking clock and they have very few options left. Any direct attack on the Red Skull would probably be met with more outrage, just like when Cap tried to broadcast his message only a few issues ago. This means that if the good guys are going to win the day now, they're going to need to think outside the box and think, well, unlike the Avengers. When Tony actually gets up and running again with a brand new robot body, courtesy of Kyle the Defender, who is apparently quite intelligent, we end up learning a fair amount about what happened to Tony and Janice at the end of H-Day. And I must say, the revelation is quite eye-opening. The Wasp and Iron Man actually escaped Boston that day and went underground, knowing full well that they were being hunted by supervillains who knew their identities, but also being hunted by the American military, who finally decided they had enough of superhero antics and as such wanted to try and clean things up their way with zero tolerance. The big reveal is that even though Tony and Janice could have escaped, they both agreed that they weren't going to leave without their son Jimmy. Tony actually went back to find him only to get ambushed, and as far as anyone knew, quote-unquote killed. I bring this up and find this interesting because you'll know that Jimmy Stark's whole raison d'etre is this idea that he was abandoned by his parents, who sacrificed him so that they could pursue their superhero work. Of course, we now know that's not true. They really did love him, they really did try and go back for him, it's just they didn't get the chance. We also get a better understanding now about about how the Red Skull was able to play on these feelings and further manipulate Jimmy. In fact, Johann basically comes out and says, yes, I'm not Kyle Jarvis, I am the Red Skull. Your father and his friends lied about me for years. Together we have managed to bring real, true, everlasting peace to America, unlike the Avengers ever did. And unlike your parents, Jimmy, I, the Red Skull, vow to never abandon you. Ooh, wow, that's just good character stuff right there. Now, what are the Avengers' next course of action? Well, they decide that if they're going to defeat the Red Skull, they will need to go through the brand new Avengers team who has stolen their name and image. They opt to sneak into the old Avengers mansion under cover of night so they can set a trap and take the evil team by surprise. Only here's the thing, Iron Man and the others are only monkeying around in this place for a few minutes when they end up discovering the horrible truth. You see, that new group of Avengers we've seen running around all throughout this series since it started, they don't actually exist. They're actually just a bunch of elaborate holograms created by the Red Skull to further help kowtow the masses. As Schmidt so evilly explains,
"They represent what will stop you. I've defeated you by giving your precious Americans everything they've ever wanted. Prosperity through ignorance, blind eyes to the suffering of others, to America's global militaristic treachery."
God damn, Zdarsky, you were on that day, weren't you? And of course, in classic supervillain fashion, now that the good guys actually know his deep dark secret, he sets the entire Avengers mansion to self-destruct in an attempt to kill them all in one fell swoop. Oh, but it gets so much worse as we also discover the Red Skull has decided to step up his timetable for the military coup. But why the wait, you might be wondering, and how did he manage to pull this off? Well, this might be the most insidious part. You see, through the power of Ultron, Red Skull has managed to completely control the flow of information in the United States. This means not only does he control what goes on the news, but he actually controls what kind of news people see. Regular Americans only see cheery puff pieces that keep them happy and keep them content, while anyone who actually works in the armed services only ends up seeing stories about how traitorous, corrupt, and incompetent the government is. Oh my god, Red Skull literally managed to weaponize the algorithm. Well, thank god this is only the stuff of comic book fantasy and not stuff that could potentially happen in real life, right? I mean, these targeted ads are completely harmless, right? For now. As the comic ends, Red Skull dons a brand new Iron Man-inspired battlesuit complete with a red helmet evocative of his old face, before he vows to march on Washington and burn it all to the ground. And so that was Avengers Twilight issue number 4, everybody, and once again I gotta say Chip Zdarsky is really cooking with this one. Obviously, if you read his old Daredevil series, you'll know that he wasn't shy about doing socio-political commentary, but here I think it's some of his best, most pointed, most topical stuff yet. Once again, the major theme of this series seems to be that one of the worst things affecting the world right now is inaction and apathy. Hell, this book even kind of turns the mirror at comic books itself as an escapist medium, saying that, hey, you know what, this fake, corporatized version of the Avengers is a part of the problem too. More than anything though, I think it's actually the character stuff that keeps me coming back. I love getting to see old Iron Man and old Cap reunite, to talk about the old days, or we find out that Thor really ended up getting discouraged about humanity because he is a god, and because he lives forever, he'll see so many of his loved ones wither to dust before his time. Hell, I really didn't think I'd end up liking the character of Jimmy Stark as much as I did when all of this started, but Zdarsky does a great job really painting him as this sad, tragic character once you really understand what makes him tick. Overall, I would give this one another 9 out of 10. We got a couple more issues left, but if this series can stick the landing, I think this is going to go down as another Zdarsky all-timer, which is saying something. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest. That's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow, and help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye bye.